We are live.
Yay!
Yay!
So somebody or other keeps posting music videos in my feed, which I enjoy very much, and the one that I wanted to wax enthusiastic about was, do you remember Walking on Broken Glass by Annie Lennox?
No.
Walking on broken glass. It's got a lot of radio play for like 2 decades. It's a very
Still
good
no.
song. The video, I don't think I'd seen it maybe ever, but at least not since I was maybe 10, and I didn't know at 10 that so it's a party, and they're all very Georgian, and it was made in the 80s, and everyone's wearing panniers and white wigs, and the story is that she had a bad breakup, and he's with another girl now, but she gets him back at the end of the video. That's the story. Except the guy that took her to the dance was Hugh Laurie, and the guy and the guy that she wants back is John Malkovich. And it was the most
That's very confusing.
they were so young. They were so young. It looked like they'd grabbed Hugh Laurie straight off the set of Blackadder, like, "Hey, we've got a use for you." And he was like, "All right, I'm down." And she gets to spurn him at one point. He's like, "Hey, let's make out." She's like, "No, I'm singing."
As one does.
That's what it does. And she's the only one not in a wig. She's wearing a turban instead, and really making a fool of herself over John Malkovich. And but then she gets him back at the end. So you're like, I don't get it, but I love it. I can watch this shit all day.
Like, have you
Oh,
seen there's a photo set that I've seen floating around lately where it's the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo, and you know the one I'm talking about.
I know which Romeo and Juliet. I don't know the photo.
So at the very beginning, when Romeo and Juliet see each other, she's dancing with Count Paris, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it's Paul Rudd. And so it's a photo set of that shot, and then it's the dude walking behind going, "Is that Paul Rudd?"
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I keep threatening that I'm going to show the kids Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Brown needed a monologue for whichever class it is they monologue in, and they were like, "This is difficult because I need like a dark comedy monologue." They'd already done comedy, and they Brown had done something from Monty Python, and they'd done drama. I don't remember what that was, but they were like, where am I gonna get dark comedy? And it has to be a play. It has to be a dark, funny play monologue. And I was like, hold my beer. I've got Rosencrantz and Guildenstern on the shelf because of course I do. And
Naturally.
it's the play. The play is very, very different from the movie, but I was like, I am certain that people is nearly identical in both. So I went and found that for them and was like, here, child, you shall you shall memorize this. And there's one point where he's interrupted, but mostly it's like 2 or 3 paragraphs of just what it is to be an actor and how horrifying it is to realize your audience is missing and how that's the only thing that causes them to exist, and without it they can't. And it's screamingly cerebral, and I find it hilarious, and Brown apparently nailed it. So
Nice.
but they haven't seen the movie yet because we never watch movies, so I keep being like, no, we have to watch this.
Yeah. I feel like actually all of the kids would be really into it. Like I feel like Emily would really like that. Blue would really like, it's they're your kids.
For
It's
my
their
kids,
kind of thing.
I would just have to like take phones away because it's the kind of movie where you have to be paying attention, even though it's largely conversational. If you miss a conversation, you're going to be screwed.
Yes, although maybe not necessarily taking phones away, because I don't know if that's actually going to help.
You know what I mean, though. Just to if they have warning that this isn't it's a thinking and talking movie that they
Yeah.
should probably pay attention to. They probably will. I didn't know until recently, speaking of celebrities turning up in weird places, that Ian Glenn was the um, Hamlet in that movie.
Who's Ian Glenn?
I'm trying to think of something not Game of Thrones. He's been in lots of things, but I keep thinking of him as his character from Game of Thrones.
Let me Google him.
Yeah, do. When you see his face, you'll be like, "Oh, him." Yeah.
Oh yeah, him. Okay. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And he is by far my favorite Hamlet of any of the ones I've seen, and I've only seen him in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. I'm like, I want the rest of the play with him because he's so good.
Oh man, that reminded me of a really cool Shakespeare idea I saw, but I don't know if I can. Darn it, I can't remember it now. It was one of those like, wouldn't it be cool to stage a Shakespeare play like this? And
Ooh.
I don't remember what it was.
If it occurs to you. I've been oh, I did see, I wish I'd saved it. Someone, I guess on Reddit, wrote about Lord of the Rings being much more palatable as a piece of fiction once you embrace it as a D&D campaign. Like it was just a little campaign for these 4 players, but they got really into it and some other people wanted to join in, so the DM wrote them in and they wrote a really OP wizard for one of the characters, but then that person is a musician who got a gig like across the state, so they planned him a really nice death scene and they lost him and they played without him for a while, but then the gig fell through or ended and he came back, so they had to write him back in, but they ceremoniously burned his stat sheet, so he had to roll up a new stat sheet and he was rolling all 20s. And they were like, okay then.
I mean, this checks out.
Right? And fucking Dave was the one who wrote up Boromir and always has to throw monkey wrenches into anything and descend slowly into madness because that's what the character would do, because fucking Dave.
God damn it, Dave.
And then they kill off that character and Dave is like, can I just play this weird little game girl NPC for a while, because he's gonna continue following them, right? And the DM's like, okay, but then Dave really nails it and they're like, oh wow, we're really into this character now, and then he descends into madness because that's what the character would do. Fucking Dave.
Oh, this reminds me of 2 things.
Yeah.
First of all, God damn it, Dave.
God damn it, Dave. And whoever wrote that, thank you so much. It made me laugh bunches. I'll try to find it again.
Excellent.
So I can credit you all.
Yes.
So
the first thing, have I ever shown you my favorite Lord of the Rings meme ever?
Maybe. Show me again.
Share my screen so that I can show you again.
Share the screen.
Share the screen. There we go. Allow. Can you see it? It is usception.
Yes.
Can you see the GIFs?
I can see the top part.
Okay, so you know which scene this is.
Yes.
Ever has it grown on the tombs of my forebears, now it shall cover the grave of my sons.
You have forebears. That is so fucking terrible. Oh my god. You should be ashamed, whoever you are.
I love it so much. It makes me laugh so hard.
I hate myself for laughing.
You have forebears. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but
it is, though. It is.
The other thing that occurred to me as I was getting us set up for today and thinking about, Mr. Perfect and all of that, is that Faramir says he wouldn't pick up the ring by the side of the road.
Yeah.
But he has never seen the ring.
No.
So it might not be that he's immune to it. It might be that he thinks, oh, RIP to everyone else, but I'm different. But actually, if he saw the ring, he would descend slowly into madness because he's also one of Dave's characters. God damn it, Dave.
He could be an NPC. He's definitely an NPC, actually, if you look at him. He's 100% NPC. There was so many other details in that Reddit thread too, like the woman who rolled up the ranger was presented with Eowyn as a love interest and then pulled the DM aside in private at one point and was like, actually, I'm really uncomfortable with romance. Can he just have like a girlfriend that we never see?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he never does see. He sees it in the movie. He doesn't see it in the book.
And in the movie, he doesn't have that line, I'm pretty sure.
No, indeed. But in the book, it has a lot less to do with what the ring is and whether it would have power over him, and more to do with we men of Gondor abide by our word or die in the attempt. And I've already said. No, wait, that was later.
That's later. No, he says something about that he.
Some sort of weapon. He doesn't guess it's the ring yet. He says if there's a weapon of the enemy, I would leave it wherever I saw it. I know my own limitations because I'm perfect. Whatever.
Look, he's the only character in the book other than Sam who knows his own limitations. So we're gonna give it to him. Everyone else is like, you dare suggest I have a limitation?
Right?
Why?
I can handle it.
Grandpa!
I can handle it. And Faramir's like, not me, thank you. It's your turn to read, yeah?
Yes. Where were we?
Sam stuck his knuckles in his eyes. Sam's refusing to sleep while they get the food ready.
Ah, yes. Sam stuck his knuckles in his eyes. There we go.
My furniture. I'm going to be working on Berkelium. He is I can't remember what kind of toad.
I like that we both just made alarmed faces. You can't remember what kind of toad?
I can't remember what kind of toad. I have it written down upstairs in a pinch, but I might still have the image search open, which would be convenient. Ooh ha ha. Not trying to make everybody dizzy. Sorry. I'm
just gonna do a Star Trek thing. Oh.
Hallelujah. I'm repainting silver, by the way. I mean, not right now, but in general, it has been bugging me for months that I just hated how it came out so badly. I'm repainting it from the get-go.
Okay.
And I've got a nice underpainting going here for Berkelium.
Oh, I think I saw that one on Instagram.
That's right. I am trying to post more often on Instagram. I'm also trying to clean up my Facebook art page. It's not easy.
Well, Facebook is the worst, so.
It is so the worst.
The new interface, I hate. Not that I spent a lot of time on Facebook before that, because I never check Facebook, but ugh, hateful.
I'm okay with the mobile interface, but the computer one, screw it. Not.
Yeah, and I don't like their privacy policy for the mobile app, so I won't use it. So I only use it on the computer, and I have an extension to keep it from tracking me when I'm not using it.
Fortunately, my life is an open book.
My life is an open book too, more or less. I just don't like other people making money off it that they don't give me.
You have a very good point.
It's like those like coupon apps that all of the YouTubers are getting sponsored by right now, like Honey and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just, I just keep looking at them and I'm like, this has always been my policy with the internet, is if you don't know what the product is you. Like those aren't free money sites that people are just doing out of the goodness of their heart. They're harvesting the data of what you sell or what you buy. So it's like, yeah, you're getting a coupon code and they're getting the data of what you buy and when to feed into their metadata and sell to the highest bidder. So they're making a lot more money than you are.
It's true.
And that's my rant about information security. I will now read about Ithilien.
I wish I felt strongly about things that ought to be felt strongly about.
I mean, you don't have to feel strongly about it just because I do. I don't require agreement.
I think you're in the right. I just have a hard time getting my dander up.
Look, everyone's got a limited amount of dander, and it's been a very dander-heavy year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it has. Even on my island over here, the dander isn't thick on the ground.
Thin on the ground, thin in the air. Just generally pretty trim. Okay. Now more torches were being lit. A cask of wine was broached. Storage barrels were being opened. Men were fetching water from the fall. Some were laving their hands in basins. That is laving with a V, not lathing with a TH. Let's be clear about that.
That's right.
Some people get those confused, and it sounds very painful.
It does. It hurts my soul.
It would hurt their hands. A wide copper bowl and a white cloth were brought to Faramir, and he washed. "Wake our guests," he said, "and take them water. It is time to eat." Frodo sat up and yawned and stretched. Sam, not used to being waited on, looked with some surprise at the tall man who bowed, holding a basin of water before him. "Put it on the ground, master, if you please," he said. "Easier for me and you." Then, to the astonishment and amusement of the men, he plunged his head into the cold water and splashed his neck and ears. "Is it the custom in your land to wash the head before supper?" said the man who waited on the hobbit. "What the hell are you doing, bro?"
Oh,
"Nope.
Love it.
Before breakfast," said Sam. "But if you're short of sleep, cold water on the neck's like rain on a wilted lettuce. There. Now I can keep awake long enough to eat a bit." They were led then to seats beside Faramir. Barrels.
I really did need that light. I'm gonna go get my light. Don't hold off on my sake. I'll be right back.
Okay. And high enough above the benches of the men for their convenience. Before they ate, Faramir and all his men turned and faced west in a moment of silence. Faramir signed to Frodo and Sam that they should do likewise. So we always do, he said as they sat down. We look towards Numenor that was, and beyond to Elvenhome that is, and to that which is beyond Elvenhome and will ever be. Have you no such custom at meat? No, said Frodo, feeling strangely rustic and untutored. But if we are guests, we bow to our host, and after we have eaten, we rise and thank him. That we do also, said Faramir. After so long journeying and camping, and days spent in the lonely wild, the evening meal seemed a feast to the hobbits, to drink pale yellow wine, cool and fragrant, and eat bread and butter, and salted meats, and dried fruits, and good red cheese, with clean hands and clean knives and plates.
Wait, good red cheese. Does that mean it's wrapped in wax like Baby Bells, or they actually have a red breed of cheese?
That's what I was trying to figure out too. I was just thinking about that. Like, is it like Red Leicester or something? You had Red
Right?
Leicester?
See, now we need to look that up.
I mean, there's definitely red cheeses. We used to sell some of them at TJ's.
Okay. I don't think I've ever had one.
They tend to be sort of like cheddary.
Okay.
Like more on the hard aged cheese side, which would make sense if you're out in the wilderness. You're not bringing soft cheese with you.
Right. Brie, anyone? Get the fuck out of here with
Cream cheese from this cow we're keeping in the cave? Like that.
Ithilien cattle. I'm sure they used to be there, and then the orcs got them.
Yeah, probably. Neither Frodo nor Sam refused anything that was offered, nor a second, nor indeed a third helping. The wine coursed in their veins and tired limbs, and they felt glad and easy of heart, as they had not done since they left the land of Lorien. When all was done, Faramir led them to a recess at the back of the cave, partly screened by curtains, and a chair and 2 stools were brought there. A little earthenware lamp burned in a niche. You may soon desire to sleep, he said, and especially good Samwise, who would not close his eyes before he ate. Whether for fear of blunting the edge of a noble hunger, or for the fear of me, I do not know. But it is not good to sleep too soon after meat, and that following a fast. Let us talk a while. On your journey from Rivendell, there must have been many things to tell, and you, too, would perhaps wish to learn something of us, and the lands where you now are. Tell me of Boromir, my brother, and of old Mithrandir, and of the fair people of Lothlorien. Frodo no longer felt sleepy, and he was willing to talk. But though the food and wine had put him at his ease, he had not lost all his caution. Sam was beaming and humming to himself, but when Frodo spoke, he was at first content to listen, only occasionally venturing to make an exclamation of agreement. Frodo told many tales, yet always he steered the matter away from the quest of the company and from the ring, enlarging rather on the valiant part Boromir had played in all their adventures with the wolves of the wild, in the snows under Caradhras, and in the mines of Moria where Gandalf fell. Faramir was most moved by the story of the fight on the bridge. It must have irked Boromir to run from orcs, he said, or even from the fell thing you name, the Balrog, even though he was the last to leave. He was the last, said Frodo, but Aragorn was forced to lead us. He alone knew the way after Gandalf's fall. Had there not been us lesser folk to care for, I do not think that either he or Boromir would have fled. Maybe it would have been better had Boromir fallen there with Mithrandir, said Faramir, and not gone on to the fate that waited above the falls of Rauros. Maybe. But tell me now of your own fortunes, said Frodo, turning the matter aside once again.
Master diplomat.
For I would learn more of Minas Ithil and Osgiliath, and Minas Tirith the long-enduring. What hope have you for that city in your long war? What hope have we? Said Faramir. It is long since we had any hope. The sword of Elendil, if it returns indeed, may rekindle it, but I do not think that it will do more than put off the evil day, unless other help unlooked for also comes, from elves or men. For the enemy increases, and we decrease. We are a failing people, a springless autumn. The men of Numenor were settled far and wide on the shores and seaward regions of the great lands, but for the most part they fell into evils and follies. Many became enamored of the darkness and the black arts. Some were given over wholly to idleness and ease, and some fought among themselves, until they were conquered in their weakness by the wild men. It is not said that evil arts were ever practiced in Gondor, or that the Nameless One was ever named in honor there. And the old wisdom and beauty brought out of the west remained long in the realm of the sons of Elendil the Fair, and they linger there still. Yet even so it was Gondor that brought about its own decay, falling by degrees into dotage and thinking that the enemy was asleep, who was only banished, not destroyed. Death was ever present because the Númenóreans still, as they had in their old kingdom, and so lost it, hungered after endless life, unchanging. Kings made tombs more splendid than houses of the living, and counted old names in the rolls of their descent dearer than the names of sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls musing on heraldry. In secret chambers withered men compounded strong elixirs, or in high cold towers asked questions of the stars. And the last king of the line of Anarion had no heir.
See, Faramir, this is why you weren't given the task of putting out the tourism pamphlet for Gondor.
Come to Gondor, see withered men counting heraldry. Marvel at the strong elixirs brewed in cold towers. Don't bring your sons, we won't remember their names.
We fall
Gondor.
into dotage.
Wait a second. Gondor, it is long since we had any hope.
Now that needs to be a shirt.
I know, right? I kind of want to make that.
Oh.
Because you could do it full tourism poster style.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, I might work on that next podcast. Who knows? Let's see. But the stewards were wiser and more fortunate. Wiser, for they recruited the strength of our people from the sturdy folk of the sea-coast, and from the hardy mountaineers of Erednivenais. And they made a truce with the proud peoples of the north, who often had assailed us, men of fierce valor, but our kin from afar off, unlike the wild Easterlings or the cruel Haradrim. So it came to pass in the days of Cirion the 12th steward, and my father is the 6th and 20th, that they rode to our aid, and at the great field of Celebrant they destroyed our enemies that had seized our northern provinces. These are the Rohirrim, as we name them, masters of horses. We ceded to them the fields of Calenarthon, that are since called Rohan, for that province had long been sparsely peopled. And they became our allies, and have proved ever true to us, aiding us at need, and guarding our northern marches in the gap of Rohan. Of our lore and manners they have learned what they would, and their lords speak our speech at need, yet for the most part they hold by the ways of their own fathers and to their own memories, and they speak among themselves their own north tongue. And we love them, tall men and fair women, valiant both alike, golden-haired, bright-eyed, and strong. They remind us of the youth of men as they were in the elder days.
He always had a thing for them.
I was literally just about to say that, like, whoa, Faramir, you always had a crush on fucking Rohirrim.
Wow. That never occurred to me. God, they're pretty. Pretty, valiant, brave.
Blonde hair, bright-eyed, valiant. Am I still talking about them? Oops. Look, he and Éowyn are a classic nerd-jock pairing.
They really are. Except he's the nerd and she's the jock.
No, that's what I meant.
Exactly. Oh. Yeah.
And he's the nerd that's always had a thing for the jocks.
He's always had a thing for the jocks. It's the only thing he has in common with his dad. I think jocks are cool.
Hey man, I like blondes too. I don't know what to say about it.
Right?
Let's see. They remind us of the youth of men.
Did you ever sorry, this just occurred to me. Did you ever hear, Mercedes Lackey did a lot of filk singing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard her sing "I Want a Blonde"?
No.
I want a blonde, maybe green eyes, maybe blue. I want a blonde, hey, I think I'll go for two.
So that's Faramir's theme song, is it?
Yes, it is. Faramir wants a blonde.
See. Indeed, it is said by our lore masters that they have from of old this affinity with us, that they are come from those same 3 houses of men as were the Númenóreans in their beginning. Not from Hador the golden-haired, the elf-friend baby, yet from such of his sons and people as went not over sea into the west, refusing the call. For so we reckon men in our lore, calling them the High, or men of the west, which were Númenóreans, and the middle peoples, men of the twilight, such as are the Rohirrim and their kin that dwell still far in the north, and the wild, the men of darkness. Yet now, if the Rohirrim are grown in some ways more like to us, enhanced in arts and gentleness, we too have become more like to them, and can scarcely claim any longer the title High. Good, because that's some elitist bullshit, dude.
It really is.
Like, this is where Tolkien shows his era a little bit.
Yeah. Tolkien, your decade is showing. Yeah.
We are become middlemen of the twilight, but with memory of other things. For as the Rohirrim do, we now love war and valor, as things good in themselves, both a sport and an end. And though we still hold that a warrior should have more skills and knowledge than only the craft of weapons and slaying, we esteem a warrior none the less above men of other crafts. Such is the need of our days. So even was my brother Boromir, a man of prowess, and for that he was accounted the best man in Gondor. And very valiant indeed he was. No heir of Minas Tirith has for long years been so hardy in toil, so onward into battle, or blown a mightier note on the great horn.
So he blew a mighty note, did
That man sure knew how to blow a mighty horn, you know what I'm saying? Faramir sighed and fell silent for a while. You don't say much in all your tales about the elves, sir, said Sam, suddenly plucking up courage. He had noted that Faramir seemed to refer to elves with reverence, and this, even more than his courtesy and his food and wine, had won Sam's respect and quieted his suspicions. No, indeed, Master Samwise, said Faramir, for I am not learned in elven lore. But there you touch upon another point in which we have changed, declining from Numenor to Middle-earth. For, as you may know, if Mithrandir was your companion, and you have spoken with Elrond, the Edain, the fathers of the Númenóreans, fought beside the elves in the first wars, and were rewarded by the gift of the kingdom in the midst of the sea, within sight of Elvenhome. But in Middle-earth men and elves became estranged in the days of darkness, and by the arts of the enemy and the slow changes of time, in which each kind walked farther down their sundered roads. Men now fear and misdoubt the elves, and yet know little of them. And we of Gondor grow like other men, like the men of Rohan, for even they, who are foes of the Dark Lord, shun the elves, and speak of the Golden Wood with dread. Yet there are among us still some who have dealings with the elves when they may. Never and anon one will go in secret to Lorien, seldom to return. Not I, for I deem it perilous now for mortal man wilfully to seek out the elder people. But I envy you that you have spoken with the White Lady. The Lady of Lorien, Galadriel, cried Sam. You should see her. Indeed you should, sir. I'm only a hobbit, and gardening's my job at home, sir, if you understand me. I'm not much good at poetry. Not at making it. A bit of a comic rhyme, perhaps, now and again, you know, but not real poetry. So I can't tell you what I mean. It ought to be sung. You'd have to get Strider, Aragorn that is, or Mr. Bilbo for that. But I wish I could make a song about her. Beautiful she is, sir. Lovely. Sometimes like a great tree in flower. Sometimes like a white daffodilly, small and slender-like. Hard as diamonds, soft as moonlight. Warm as sunlight, cold as frost in the stars. Proud and far off as a snow mountain, and as merry as any lass I ever saw with daisies in her hair in the springtime. But that's a lot of nonsense, and all wide of my mark. Then she must be lovely indeed, said Faramir. Perilously fair. Well, I don't know about perilous, said Sam. Strikes me that folks takes their peril with 'em into Lorien, and finds it there because they've brought it. But perhaps you could call her perilous, because she's so strong in herself. You could dash yourself to pieces on her, like a ship on a rock, or drown yourself like a hobbit in a river. Neither rock nor river would be to blame. Now he stopped and went red in the face. Yes, now Boromir, you would say, said Faramir. What would you say? He took his peril with him. Yes, sir, begging your pardon, and a fine man as your brother was, if I may say so. But you've been warm on the scent all along. Now I watched Boromir and listened to him, from Rivendell all down the road, looking after my master, as you'll understand, and not meaning any harm to Boromir. And it's my opinion that in Lorien he first saw clearly what I guessed sooner, what he wanted. From the moment he first saw it, he wanted the enemy's ring. Sam! Cried Frodo, aghast. God damn it, Sam. He had fallen deep into his own thoughts for a while and came out of them suddenly and too late. Save me, said Sam, turning white and then flushing scarlet. There I go again. Whenever you open your big mouth, you put your foot in it, the gaffer used to say to me, right enough. Oh dear, oh dear. Now look here, sir. He turned, facing up to Faramir with all the courage that he could muster. Don't you go taking advantage of my master, because his servant's no better than a fool. You've spoken very handsome all along, put me off my guard, talking of elves and all. But handsome is as handsome does, we say. Now's a chance to show your quality. So it seems, said Faramir slowly and very softly, with a strange smile. So that is the answer to all the riddles, the one ring that was thought to have perished from the world. And Boromir tried to take it by force, and you escaped and ran all the way to me. And here in the wild I have you. 2 halflings and a host of men at my call, and the ring of rings. A pretty stroke of fortune, and chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. Ha! He stood up, very tall and stern, his grey eyes glinting. Frodo and Sam sprang from their stools and set themselves side by side with their backs to the wall, fumbling for their sword hilts. There was a silence. All the men in the cave stopped talking and looked towards them in wonder. But Faramir sat down in his chair and began to laugh quietly, and then suddenly became grave again. Faramir, whoa, buddy. Whoa now.
Right?
If you're like, a chance for me to show my quality. Okay. All right, you've had a hard week. Okay, let's calm down. Alas for Boromir, it was too sore a trial, he said. How you have increased my sorrow, you 2 strange wanderers from a far country, bearing the peril of men. But you are less judges of men than I of halflings. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. We boast seldom, and then perform or die in the attempt. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, and even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow and be held by them. But I am not such a man, or I am wise enough to know that there are some perils from which a man must flee. Sit at peace, and be comforted, Samwise. If you seem to have stumbled, think that it was fated to be so. Your heart is shrewd as well as faithful, and saw clearer than your eyes. For strange though it may seem, it was safe to declare this to me. It may even help the master that you love. It shall turn to his good if it is in my power. So be comforted. But do not even name this thing again aloud. Once is enough. The hobbits came back to their seats and sat very quiet. Men turned back to their drink and their talk, perceiving that their captain had had some jest or other with the little guests, and that it was over. I love how they're like, oh yeah, that seems like a joke. They looked mortally terrified and had their backs against the wall and their hands on their sword hilts, and he was looming over them,
Yeah,
like jokers do.
this was his classic Faramir prank.
I just, you've been Faramir pranked.
Yeah.
Faramir has many things. A good sense of humor, not one.
Apparently he does, though, because they weren't surprised, so...
But that doesn't mean his sense of humor is good.
No. Captain Faramir is excellent, but his sense of humor is really fucked up.
Where am I? Well, Frodo, now at last we understand. What?
Yeah, never let him deliver bad news to the grieving, because bet you $5 you're the widow Rumble. It just doesn't apply.
Yeah, especially when he insists on collecting.
All right. Anyway,
well, Frodo, now at last we understand one another, said Faramir. If you took this thing on yourself, unwilling, at others' asking, then you have pity and honor from me. And I marvel at you, to keep it hid and not to use it. You are a new people and a new world to me. Are all your kin of like sort? Your land must be a realm of peace and content, and there must gardeners be in high honor. Not all is well there, said Frodo, but certainly gardeners are honored. But folk must grow weary there, even in their gardens, as do all things under the sun of this world. And you are far from home and wayworn. No more tonight. Sleep, both of you, in peace, if you can. Fear not. I do not wish to see it, or touch it, or know more of it than I know, which is enough, lest peril perchance waylay me, and I fall lower in the test than Frodo, son of Drogo. Go now to rest, but first tell me only, if you will, whither you wish to go, and what to do. For I must watch, and wait, and think. Time passes. In the morning we must each go swiftly on the ways appointed to us. Frodo felt himself trembling as the first shock of fear passed. Now a great weariness came down on him like a cloud. He could dissemble and resist no longer. I was going to find a way into Mordor, he said faintly. I was going to Gorgoroth. I must find the Mountain of Fire and cast the thing into the Gulf of Doom. Gandalf said so. I do not think I shall ever get there. Faramir stared at him for a moment in grave astonishment. Then suddenly he caught him.
What?
You're gonna what now? And lifting him gently, carried him to the bed and laid him there and covered him warmly. At once, he fell into a deep sleep. Another bed was set beside him for his servant. Sam hesitated for a moment, then bowing very low. Good night, Captain, my lord, he said. You took the chance, sir. Did I so? Said Faramir. Yes, sir, and showed your quality, the very highest. Faramir smiled. A pert servant, Master Samwise. But nay, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. Yeah, you better take a compliment from Sam.
Yeah, fuck you. Although I really do love that phrase. That's a really well put Tolkienism. The praise of the praiseworthy.
Yes.
Fucking love it.
Yet there was naught in this to praise. I had no lure or desire to do other than I have done.
Shit. And I'll praise
well.
Fucker.
Just take the compliment. Oh, well, sir, said Sam. You said my master had an elvish air, and that was good and true. But I can say this. You have an air, too, sir, that reminds me of, well, Gandalf, of wizards. Maybe, said Faramir. Maybe you discern from far away the air of Numenor. Good night. And that is the end of the chapter.
And it's 8:01.
Look at our timing.
We just rock so much. I know exactly how much breeze to shoot. What do we think of his little fish?
I like his little face. He looks kind of gruff, but like in a pleasant way.
Yeah. Berkelium has 0 uses, but it does eventually decay into other things that do have uses. So I have declared him. What have I declared him? Intermission is his handle. He is a place to pause and sit a while and take your helmet off. And I had his paw out like this, but I think I'm going to have it doing this instead.
I like that.
Like take a minute with cranky old frog. And he's desert Sonoran desert toads, and those are the kind, pretty sure. I did this research a while ago and then I didn't write it down. I just, made the choice. But I think this is one of those toads that can hibernate for like 16 years until the rain comes. So
desert toads often, I think, are.
exactly.
I'm gonna be that guy for a second. Sonoran
Thank you.
Desert.
Sonoran. I beg your pardon. They actually have 2 names, and I can't remember what the other one is. Do 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 do. Sonoran desert toads. Colorado river toads are their other name, and
Nice.
they. So when I was doing my research for the lanthanides and actinides, I kind of learned that there's not as big a difference between frogs and toads as I thought. It basically boils down to who got to name them. Because there are some very lumpy frogs and some very slimy toads and some frogs that don't have long legs or bounce around.
Sorry, just my 2 favorite phrases from this episode are Gondor, it is long since we had any hope, and there are some very lumpy frogs.
Yep. Yeah.
That sums it up. All right. Well, I'm gonna go.
Okay, I love you.
I love you too.
We don't
I'll
know.
see you next week. Liamas.
Ah.